So you're the... mole. By the way, I realize that I have a large mole on my face.
Where? What?
I also realize the irony that I am myself a mole.
No one would make that connection.
Jolly good work.
Yes, nice to mole you. Meet you. Nice to meet you, mole. Don't say mole.
Stop.
I said mole.
Stop.
Mole, 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 mole.
Congressman, thank you so much for being on the program. This has got to be music to your ears hearing Governor DeSantis this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Benny. I'm glad that Governor DeSantis is conducting his own investigation. You know, I want to point out a couple things that I've been looking at since this second assassination attempt took place. We got lucky again. The Secret Service got lucky again in that in both cases, neither of these individuals were trained. And, you know, I can tell you by looking at one of the photos that the public has had access to, the photo with his rifle up against the fence with the two ceramic plates hanging on the fence. In sniper terminology, we would call that an FFP, a final firing position, where you're going to be taking your final shot to execute your target. One of the things that I noticed was that based on the story that he stuck his gun through the fence, and that's what the Secret Service agent noticed. A trained shooter would cut a hole in that fence, something we call a loophole, so that he could set back and stand off and continue to be in the shade back away from the fence. The other thing, a trained individual would not put those two big, dark bags that have straight lines in them, right up against the fence, because that's something that an observer or a Secret Service agent, as he's scanning a fence line, the eye would catch, because nature does not have straight lines in it. And so once again, I make all that point to, say that we got lucky again, and that the assassins that are coming after Trump to this point are not trained individuals. What happens when the smoke screen, that's gone up to all these actors around the world, and even some of the folks here in this country that would love to kill President Trump, and they actually start sending trained people, like Eric Prince was talking about, a 5-man Hezbollah team. And so, that's point number one. Point number two is this. The president, my advice to the president is to bolster your private security around you, not only to fill holes in the gaps that the Secret Service continues to leave open, but also to watch the watchers. There is a very real possibility at this point that there is a mole within the Secret Service team surrounding the president, or at the highest levels of the Secret Service. And so he does need somebody, a group of individuals around him that are loyal to him and are not politicized. They're not worried about seeking promotion, and they don't answer to people that hate the president. And so, that would be my advice to the president at this point.
We were in Butler together, and I'm forever grateful for you talking me through what happened in Butler as we were on site. It's so remarkable, the lack of curiosity from the rest of the media about what happened in Butler. However, it is remarkable when you go there to see, one, the fence line that was totally unprotected, where just 100 yards away was President Trump and everyone at the MAGA rally, and a trained group of militiamen, as you pointed out, could have killed hundreds, actually, given that security, perimeter. It was a grotesque and egregious, and thank God that it was just one lone gunman, and he wasn't professionally trained, as you said. However, it was something that was on the president's official schedule. You could have planned a bad event around that, because, well, for months they said they were going to Butler, Pennsylvania, and they said where they were going to be. What happened yesterday, and I can't get this out of my head, 48 hours ago on Sunday, Congressman, was not a planned event. It was OTR. It was totally fluid. You've traveled with President Trump. His schedule is completely fluid. There's no way to predict where he was going to be. Yet this assassin sat inside of his sniper's nest, even if it is badly positioned, for 12 hours with what seemed to be deep assurance that President Trump was going to be at that location, when nobody, including our show or any show, knew where President Trump was going to be. And so is this why you're saying that Trump's got to watch the watchers?
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that you have to consider. But the other thing too is that I don't believe that the Secret Service in many cases is making wise security decisions. You know, I talked to you, Benny, at length, and your audience about why didn't the Secret Service place any of their counter sniper teams on that water tower? Had they done that, and that was the very first thing that I noticed when I got on site. You know, that was a chip shot for any counter sniper. That was like a 130-yard shot and had direct purview over the AGR building. I don't think that the Secret Service is making good security decisions as well. So that's why I think the president needs to bolster his private security, presence, so that they can watch it, not only the decisions that are being made, but if there is a hole that the Secret Service can't fill, they can go augment that and support that.
So what do you think is the likelihood that this individual, I suppose we'll find out in an investigation, and now we have some assurances that there's going to be a proper investigation here. What do you think of is the probability that this gunman, this would-be assassin, knew ahead of time where Donald Trump was going to be? And I'll preface this by saying we covered yesterday on the program an FBI assistant director spoke to Fox News and said there's a real chance he was tipped off.
Yeah, I think it's very possible, Benny. And I think that there's a lot more possibilities that would be very alarming to the American people that could play out here. But to your point, that's why I'm so glad that Governor DeSantis is deciding to take this responsibility, take it seriously, and put some of his good people on it that don't have some bias towards the president.
What say you about the FBI? That is, Jeffrey Veltri is the person who's in charge of this investigation. Before he got promoted, he had to delete a bunch of anti-Trump posts on Facebook that he made, and then the same FBI that raided Mar-a-Lago with guns drawn and with a kill order at Mar-a-Lago, now saying they're here to fully protect the president. It doesn't make any sense to me, Congressman.
Yeah, you're right. And this is the same FBI, Benny, that I believe, I'm about 90% certain, has continued to lie to us about the January 6th pipe bomber. Director Wray told me in a committee hearing that he was doing everything in his power using, he went over all the resources that he had committed to, solving the January 6th pipe bomber situation. The one guy that could have created multiple mass casualties in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, who hasn't been caught yet we were able to, round up all over the country, American citizens that in many cases were allowed to walk into the Capitol. And so, I don't buy it. I don't buy their story about that. And I don't buy the fact that they're going to do a thorough investigation and release that information to the American people. And that's why I think it's so important that, parallel investigations like the one that myself and Corey Mills have continued to do on the Butler rally, and even the one that Governor DeSantis is doing, is very important, because so much of the time, the organizations, the task forces, a lot of it's political, and this is no time for politics. This is time, to get to the bottom of things. And make sure that this doesn't happen again, in addition to being transparent with the American people.
Final question here that I just can't figure out, and I know you're a lot smarter and more accomplished than me, so maybe you can explain it to me and my audience. You're a Navy SEAL, so you know firearms and firearm laws probably quite well. You're a member of Congress, so you know voting laws quite well. How did Ryan Ralph vote in North Carolina in 2024? Just 6 months ago, he voted in the Democrat primary in person for Joe Biden. How did this Joe Biden voter vote in North Carolina, even though he lived in Hawaii? How was he able to purchase firearms when he had weapons of mass destruction felonies on his record? He had that in 2002. We have the arrest record. There's 100 criminal charges for this guy. Well, how's he able to get his hands on weapons? How's he able to vote in Democrat primaries? Everything seems incredibly suspicious. And final question, just for fun, how did this guy who was unemployed, able to purchase tickets to Ukraine, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, Florida? Who's paying for this?
Yeah, well, as far as your voting question, I guess our elections aren't as transparent and tight as a lot of folks in the establishment would have you believe. As far as the gun question, it's just one more reason why These Democrats who want to take away our firearms can't be allowed to do that, because criminals don't care about laws. They don't care about gun laws, right? And our founding fathers knew that. And a lot of us still know it. And that's why it's important to protect that Second Amendment. And that's something that we've seen, Benny, now. A lot of Democrats are once again coming out, and they're using this as an opportunity to push their gun control narrative, and kind of distract us from what the focus of this needs to be, and trying to make sure that no president, no presidential candidate, regardless of who he is, has people that want to kill him be able to get this close to him and almost pull it off.
Yeah. Someone's going to have to eventually explain that. Where's the money coming from? The bank statements don't lie.
Right.
So where was the money coming from for this guy to do all of this ubiquitous travel, and then wind up for 12 hours outside of Trump's golf course with an illegally purchased firearm? A final thought here. The FBI said that they got a tip. We were waiting for this yesterday. He was on the FBI radar for what? For being a felon with a firearm. And now it turns out he's a felon with a firearm that tried to kill Trump, and they didn't stop it.
Yeah, well, it seems to be par for the course these days. I'm sure the Babylon Bee will be cooking up an interesting headline on that one.
Thank you, Congressman. Godspeed. Everybody follow Eli Crane. He's just one of the real ones, actually, in Congress. Here's the account, and make sure that we put power, energy, and momentum into the people that are actually doing the Lord's work in that dark city.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, Benny.
Godspeed.